became second-class citizens, and their civil rights and civil liberties were diminished on a large scale. Well, there were two men in Bellevue Men's Shelter at that time. One named Louis Higgins, the other one named Anthony Williams. They are the co-founders of Picture the Homeless. And they witnessed nighttime, midnight raids, similar to what the colonists rebelled against when soldiers used to just come in the middle of the night and take over their quarters. Well, at these shelters, the police would come and they would look at the manifest, the people that signed in, and they would juxtapose that against outstanding warrants. And in the middle of the night, they would raid these shelters and looking for people that had outstanding warrants. In the midst of that, with the one-size-fit-all mentality, innocent homeless people were being roused. Their lives were already disrupted, was being more disrupted, and that was part of the demonization, criminalization process that Mayor Giuliani instituted. Well, these two co-founders that I alluded to decided that you didn't have, because you was homeless, you didn't have to accept this. You were an American citizen who happened to fall between the cracks, so you could fight back for your civil rights and your civil liberties. Around that concept, they sought to mobilize and organize the homeless people to vindicate their civil liberties. And while they were doing this, they were fortunate enough to meet our director, Ms. Lynn Lewis, who will probably join us later today. And the three of them, with a Latino brother from Charters named Chino Garcia, they started to lay the groundwork for what's now Picture the Homeless. They wrote the mission statement. They was looking for a place where homeless people, a safe space where homeless people could meet to organize and mobilize around the struggle. And finally, during that period, they were lucky enough to come upon a community-orientated church, Judson Memorial Church, that's down on West 4th Street. And that was our first, Judson Memorial Church became our fiscal sponsor and gave us our first office space. Small as it is, it's now an elevator shaft, and it's now an elevator shaft, but Picture the Homeless, with God's blessing, has flourished since then. So after that, we moved to a site on 116th Street in Spanish Harlem, El Barrio. And while we were there, we noticed every time we went out to get sugar or run errands or coming to and from our office, we noticed the abundance of abandoned buildings in that area. So we started to talk about why is it so much homelessness while at the same time there's so many abandoned buildings. So we went to meetings with the Department of Homeless Services, Commissioner then Lynn Gibbs, who's now Deputy Mayor, and we brought this to her attention where she said that the amount of abandoned housing stock was inconsequential, too insignificant to even matter. But Picture the Homeless was not to be deterred. So we started to do a block-by-block building count to come with actual figures to say we beg to differ with you, but there is a significant amount of abandoned housing stock, while at the same time New York City is experiencing record amounts of homelessness. So the borough president, Scott Springer, mind you, we were in Manhattan then, not the Bronx. So the borough president, Scott Springer, he caught on to our idea and said, you know, I think these people are on to something. So he was the first public official to help us in this struggle, and he used his resources to help us do a one borough building count. And when we, at the conclusion of that building count, one of the dynamic conclusions that we came up with, findings that we came up with, was that there was enough abandoned buildings in that one borough to house the entire homeless population of New York City in one borough. So then we started to say, well, who owns these buildings? They're not just sitting here in a vacuum. Somebody owns them. Somebody holds the title. Let's identify these people. and we found out that J.P. Morgan Chase was one of the primary holders of this property. And we found out that what they were doing was speculating on the lucrative real estate market to try to hold this property until it reached the peak of its value. And then they would refurbish these buildings, but they would make them co-ops. And the families that have been living in these communities for generations would be displaced, and then regentrification would take place. So entire communities would be destabilized, etc. So Picture the Homeless continued with that struggle, and we came up with a creative proposal called Intro 48. Now this is a legislative proposal, and we took this to the city council. Member by member, step by step, we got almost 30 people from the city council to sign on and co-sponsor this piece of legislation. However, the mayor is diametrically opposed to this because it flies in the face of the real estate lobby that's part of his constituency. So, through his speaker in the city council, Christine Quinn, they've tried their best to block, to stonewall this progressive piece of legislation so that it doesn't see the light of day. Picture the Homeless has held actions to dramatize this. We've gotten the face of the city council saying that this is undemocratic. We went out to the community and said, if our legislation is blocked today, tomorrow the speaker can block your legislation. This is not fit with our system of democracy. Picture the Homeless believes in participatory democracy and transparency in government. So we believe that we should be in the decision-making process that impacts upon our lives. It's written into our mission statement. So right now, our housing campaign is at that loggerhead. We're still pushing to get Intro 48 into the public domain so that you can have a hearing so that people opposed or in favor can come together and we can get some kind of resolution. Picture the Homeless, if you keep on interacting with us, we're not content to just draw attention to how bad the situation is. We're an organization that's solution-orientated. So we welcome everybody to participate in public forums. And if you don't like our idea, you can come up with a better idea, and we learn as we grow. But we know that the present situation is not working. Matter of fact, in the 10 years I've been with Picture the Homeless, homelessness and poverty in this city has increased. No matter how hard Picture the Homeless has worked, our sisters and brothers in this struggle, like Community Voices heard, no matter how hard we work, poverty and homelessness has increased in the last decade. So that shows that the administrators are not doing a good job. So it's time for the grassroots to jump in the vanguard, take leadership, and come up with some policies that actually work for the benefit of the people and benefit the needy and not the greedy. Thank you.